Hi, I'm Darren from Property Prosperity. Thanks for coming to our website. If you're thinking about building, developing, or selling your property in Adelaide, you've come to the right place. Because we offer such a range of services, we've broken our website down into a series of questions that will take you through to where we can offer you the most assistance. You also notice we've got some case studies in there, as well as some testimonials from some past clients. You might even find a few little free reports and some free books in there as well, which I'm sure you'll find useful down the track. So if you've got any questions, click on the Contact Us page, and I look forward to catching up with you soon. Hey, this is Darren from Property Prosperity. I'm just out at a commercial development site, having chat to the clients, looking at their options. And one thing we're looking at doing, rather than trying to sell off as a commercial property, we're maybe looking at the option of maybe we can turn it into a residential development. And so one of the benefits of that, with a commercial property, really it all comes down to the tenant and what the rent the tenant is going to pay, and then really looking at the rental yield. So once you work back from what the tenant's going to pay, you work out what sort of return the investor wants. Let's say they want 8% or 10% or 7%, depending on what they're looking at doing. Then you can work out what they're going to get paid for it. And so in this example, we've worked out what it's worth. Then the question is, can we add any extra value to the property? And so one of the ways of doing that is developing it. The issue with that, particularly with this commercial property, even if we developed it, you can see it's not, it's sort of retail at the front and a bit more industrial at the back. There's only so many things they can do with it that's going to actually increase the rental return. So if we're looking at redeveloping it, if we redeveloped it into a commercial property, then really we might get the same amount of rent that you otherwise would get. So then we're looking at the option of maybe what about if we redevelop it into a commercial property, a residential property. So you can see this one across the road here. Someone's actually subdivided here from 1 into 4 houses. So what we looked at is use that as our bit of example. If we could do something similar and we could fit 4 houses on there, it'd be worth a lot more than it would be as one commercial development site. So we've gone through the process of finding out what the council requirements are. So in this particular property, to be able to get subdivision approval to subdivide it into 4 like they've done across the road, we would actually have to get planning approval. So planning approval means is some houses going to fit on the block. So they're things like the setback, so how far it's going to be from the back and the front and the sides, and how something called private open space, which is the size of the backyard. We have site coverage, which is the size of the house relative to the block. And then we take into account a whole pile of other things like parking and all the rest of the type of things. So we've gone down the process. I've looked at all the options, and now we're at the point now we can sort of say, well, this is what we think it's worth right now. This is what we think it's going to be worth at the end if we subdivide it to build 4 houses. And then we can consider what the costs are to try and build those 4 houses. So we can try and work out whether we're going to be better off with a commercial site or whether we're going to be better off with a residential building 4 houses. Obviously, it's a pretty big investment. You're going to have to build 4 houses on there, so it's quite expensive. So the question is it worth the hassle? And so one of the things we discovered though as we were looking at this particular development, and which you can see with the house across the road. So these ones across the road here, these are 3-bedroom, sort of 2-bathroom, single garage sort of houses. If you notice that they're single garage houses, but what you're normally going to have to require when you've got a house is you're going to need parking for your visitors. So it's called a visitor car park. So you're going to need 1 undercover park and you're going to need 1 visitor car park. So these particular ones here, they don't have any visitor car parking. So that's really not going to fit within council requirements. So we've gone down the track of drawing up a whole pile of plans, negotiating with council. Everything seems to tick the box so far. Really the thing we haven't been able to tick the box so far on is the visitor car parking. And because the site is so small, we're trying to fit 4 houses on a relatively small block. The question then is, what's that actually going to mean? And so the only way to find this out, unfortunately, is to lodge an application with council and see if we can get it approved. What that means though is if it doesn't fit within council requirements, they take you through a slightly different process, which means they send you off to a development assessment panel. So like a panel that will consider it on its merits and decide whether they want to approve it or not. And so it's a bit of a risky process because it's very subjective and it's based on whether people like it or not. And so it is a bit of a 50-50, I suppose. So, but at the end of the day, you can spend, a few $1,000s to get this, to find out whether it's going to get approved, but you can add, hundreds of thousands of dollars worth of value. So sometimes it's worth spending a little bit of money up front to find out whether it's going to happen, and then obviously if it gets knocked back, you found out that it's not possible. But if it can go through and you can actually get the approval, you can add significant amounts of money. So that's where we're at the moment. We've drawn up our plans, we've had a chat to council, everything looks all good except for this visitor parking thing. Now the next stage is to spend a little bit of money, find out whether we can get the approvals through, and then the client then can decide what they want to do. They may choose to develop it themselves, or they may choose to maybe just sell it off with a development approval. And even just having that development approval is taking away a significant amount of risk for the purchaser, and then they may pay you an extra $50,000 or $100,000 more than they otherwise would have paid you, purely because you're taking away the risk of not knowing whether the approval's going to happen. So hopefully it's made sense to everybody. Maybe you've got a commercial property out there and you're not really sure what you can do with it, and you're wondering whether there's options to try and change the use of the property and maybe add some extra value in that way. If you like what I had to say, then click on the like button. I really appreciate it. If you know someone out there with a commercial property and maybe you want to share this post, and I'm sure they'll get some value out of it if they've trying to weigh up what their options are. And likewise, if you've got any questions or comments, so I'd love to hear your feedback down below. I'm happy to answer any questions you may have and give you any feedback. And if you've got an idea for, you want some feedback about another topic related to property, anything to do with property, I'm sure I can give you an opinion on. Feel free to put a comment in the comment box, and I'm happy to give you any advice I can. Thanks guys, I look forward to talking to you again next time. Bye for now.